BF, 20M, and I, 21F, are in an anxious-avoidant dynamic. Touchy talk about plastic surgery spiraled. He doesn't like who he's become in our relationship and punched a cabinet. Can we move forward? TLDR. My boyfriend, 20 years old, and I, 21 years old, are both anxious-avoidant and have been together for a year. After a sensitive conversation, he shut down, leading to a more serious argument. He is not happy with who he has become in this relationship and punched my wooden cabinet multiple times out of frustration. We care for each other, but I'm uncertain how to proceed. 1. Background. To begin with, this is quite lengthy, and I appreciate anyone who takes the time to read and respond to this. I, female, 21 years old, have been in a relationship with my boyfriend, male, 20 years old, for a year after meeting at our university. This is our first relationship, and we just celebrated our 1-year anniversary, which coincides with Valentine's Day. We come from Chinese immigrant families where emotions were not openly discussed, which has affected our communication styles. I have spent considerable time working on this over the years, but I still have significant room for improvement. My boyfriend, on the other hand, has more difficulty with vulnerability and expressing his emotions. He tends to shut down or become defensive during conflicts, while I tend to over-communicate and seek reassurance. This is our final year together in person since I will be graduating in June and maybe relocating across the country, back home. The thought of entering a long-distance relationship is overwhelming, especially since we have not been apart for longer than a summer break. 2. Our dynamic and recurring issues. Typically, I initiate our difficult conversations and resolutions, encouraging him to communicate his feelings. He is often more passive. For most of my life, I believed I was avoidant, but university helped me open up. In this relationship, I have become anxious, seeking reassurance, validation, and frequent communication. I tend to over-communicate due to past experiences and desire to see him more frequently, while he struggles with vulnerability, expression, and tends to withdraw when feeling overwhelmed. We can both be stubborn, but I always apologize when I know I have hurt him. He has made progress, yet he still often becomes defensive and takes longer to apologize. Since New Year's, we have had 2 major arguments that nearly resulted in a breakup. Both times, he left once without a word, leaving me feeling abandoned. In each instance, I reached out first to discuss things. After our last fight, we did not speak for an entire week, and it hurt that he never initiated contact. When I eventually asked why, he mentioned that he had been checking my location and texts but felt emotionally stuck. I still think about that. Side note, I realize this is unhealthy, but since I usually reach out, I wanted to see if he would. When he didn't, I went to see him to talk, because there was no reason to prolong the silence. After these conflicts, we always commit to better communication, but I cannot confidently say we are following through, as it has only been 2 months. 3. The tense conversation that led to everything this week, while stressed about exams, he came over. We somehow ended up discussing plastic surgery for the 2nd time ever. The first time we talked about it, 4 months into our relationship, he broke up with me over it. He saw it as a fundamental difference in values but later regretted the ultimatum, was eager to resolve the issue, and sincerely apologized. This time, I casually mentioned that if I had the funds, I would consider getting double eyelid surgery because my eyelids are uneven. He became skeptical and questioned my motivations, worrying that I was conforming to societal beauty standards and sacrificing my individuality, which he is particularly fixated on doing things not to please others. He expressed that he liked my natural eyelids, which I appreciated, but I reiterated that I would still opt for the surgery. To me, it was not an argument, just a calm exchange. However, afterward, he completely shut down. 4. Silent treatment before bed. He was unusually quiet. He took a shower and then laid out a mattress on the floor to sleep on. For context, he suggested this earlier because my bed is a small twin, and he grew up sleeping on the floor in Malaysia, so it does not bother him. I asked if he wanted to sleep next to me in bed instead, hoping to reconnect, and he seemed interested but hesitated due to the light from my computer, saying he would prefer the floor. He then lay down without a word, no good night, no hug, no kiss, no acknowledgement. I asked, "Are you going to bed without even saying anything?" He replied that it had simply not crossed his mind. That confused me because he usually acknowledges me kindly. I pressed him, and he questioned approximately, "Why do you need those gestures to feel reassured? I show affection during the day, why does it have to be right before bed?" I explained approximately, "Because we're not going to see each other tomorrow. I don't understand why kissing your girlfriend goodnight isn't something that would naturally cross your mind." He admitted that he was still uncomfortable about our earlier discussion, and that in addition to his workload, he didn't know how to approach his feelings regarding the earlier issue. Therefore, he was trying not to engage with me and was not in the mood to be affectionate. This explanation made sense but did not sit right with me, as he has indicated before that when he feels overwhelmed, he detaches, turns inward, and temporarily stops feeling care towards me. During arguments, he often does not seem to feel love for me anymore, sometimes mildly, sometimes completely. 5. The resulting argument. At one point, I teared up and said, "I feel like I love you more than you love me." Later, he asked, "Do you love me? What do you love about me?" I pointed out that I could ask him the same question, highlighting that he has struggled to articulate what he likes about me in the past, whereas I have written him a letter listing everything I adore about him. At one point during our argument, he said, "Maybe I don't love you as much as you think I do." I cried, and he hugged me. In the past, he would just sit there while I cried or stare at me, feeling detached, so at least he felt remorse. He then admitted that since we began dating, he does not like the person he has become in the past year. He has always struggled with low self-esteem. Before we started dating, he had a structured routine, waking up early, exercising, and being highly focused. Now he feels he has lost discipline. He spends most days and nights with me and has compromised his habits, including sleep, partly to spend time with me. Thus, he wishes I would also change to support him, for example, sleeping earlier so he can stay over but still wake up at 6 a.m. for the gym. Hearing this devastated me, and I spiraled, saying, "I didn't know being with me was preventing you from reaching your goals." He quickly replied, "That's not what I meant," but I was too caught up in my emotions and interpretation for him to explain further. I told him I needed time to think and encouraged him to reflect on whether this relationship is truly what he wants and to take space this week for his studies, reaching out when he feels ready. At some point, I also mentioned that if we did decide to break up, I hoped we could arrive at a mutual conclusion. He remained silent throughout. 6. The breaking point, punching the cabinet. We lay in silence, likely both crying. Then he got up and punched my wooden cabinet. He winced the first time and said, "That hurt." However, he did it 2 more times despite my quiet plea, "Can you not do that? It makes me uncomfortable." Overwhelmed, I hid under the blanket and said, "I can't help you right now." He stopped when he muttered, "I don't know what I'm doing, hurting myself for attention." He has never behaved like this before. He has always been gentle and never directed anger toward me, even in deeply stressful situations. Afterward, he went outside into the freezing cold, returned, and simply went to sleep. 7. Aftermath and where we stand now in the morning, he still seemed upset, not caring to close doors softly and allowing them to slam. I pretended to stay asleep. He left without saying anything, and we have not spoken for 2 days. I doubt he will reach out. I know he was trying to engage, and he did care. He could have completely shut down, but he did not. He kept talking and stayed up late despite having a test the following day. Looking back, I regret over-explaining, reacting emotionally, and misinterpreting his words. I tend to do that in ways that make him feel unheard and defensive. I believe he gave up and shut down again because of it. I dislike the person I become during our fights. I have always supported him in the past when he has opened up, but now I worry if he will ever feel comfortable sharing his struggles with me again. 8. Final notes. Our relationship and what to do about it. Despite our challenges, I am certain that we love one another. He is one of the gentlest, kindest individuals I have ever met, and he treats me with patience and care. He expresses love through acts of service, even if he struggles with verbal affirmations. Nonetheless, he has made an effort to meet me halfway because he understands it matters to me. We have formed a deep connection over intimate details about our inner selves and personal histories. We have supported each other in ways we may not even recognize. So this situation is difficult. We are both sensitive, but I sometimes wonder if he lies awake at night like I do, analyzing our arguments and considering how to improve things. We have previously discussed our differences and made adjustments, so I wonder if we can navigate forward from this situation as well. Final questions. How can we enhance our personal growth and the health of our relationship? How and when should I approach him following this event? How should I interpret his punching the cabinet? How can we effectively manage his struggles with insecurity? I would appreciate any advice or perspective. Story 2. Friend betrayal. Warning. This is somewhat lengthy, but I wanted to explain why I realized the situation immediately and why I feel hurt. I will use fictitious names for clarity. I am unsure if this qualifies as a betrayal. Most likely it does not, but it still hurts regardless. I was interested in a man at work, Mark, and we were both flirting a great deal. While I was on vacation, he frequently mentioned me, to the extent that my friend, Vicky, texted me about it, claiming that everyone believed he had feelings for me. For context, I wasn't seeking a serious relationship since he is younger than I am, but I do like him and was open to perhaps something physical. Vicky, who also works with me, was aware of this and even encouraged me, pointing out how she noticed the way he spoke to me and touched me. This lasted for a while, but I was temporarily living in my car due to an apartment delay. Mark was very kind and offered to drive over to check on me and let me stay with him if he weren't living with his father. I eventually secured my apartment, and Mark continued to act normally, with our interactions remaining unchanged until Vicky returned from her vacation, at which point he began acting strangely. Mark never calls out sick, but he suddenly did that week. The next week, he switched shifts with someone on her day off. Then odd behaviors began to surface. When I did work alongside him, he barely spoke to me. We have a teasing rapport at our job, particularly between ourselves, and then that just ceased. I asked her if he had mentioned anything about me, mainly to see if she would confess what I had suspected, or if I perhaps made him uncomfortable, as I could instantly sense something unusual. I noticed a shift in his attention towards her, which was peculiar given that she is married. It appeared they were becoming closer. Vicky insisted that he was still acting normally and suggested that Mark might just be having an off day, which had been more than one day, but fine. Then, just after I mentioned this to her, the very next day, he resumed speaking to me almost normally, yet there was little to no flirting and hardly any physical contact. She must have told him to behave normally, right? Not too long ago, after Mark had begun his strange behavior, Vicky informed me her husband wanted a divorce due to personal issues, but portrayed him as the villain in the situation. I realized something was off when I noticed her and Mark whispering, and then he suddenly began taking certain days off, which he had never done before. One day, she received a message at work and rushed home because her soon-to-be ex-husband destroyed her belongings. She was obviously devastated and took time off work to visit family in another state. The day before her departure, Mark called out. On the night of her departure, she came in to apologize for leaving us short-staffed, and while we were talking, I noticed a hickey on Mark's neck. I mean, really. To make a long story short, she was away for 2 weeks and returned with the intention of staying with family, which she decided to pursue and subsequently quit. She is currently in the process of moving out of the apartment she shared with her husband. I have seen her occasionally as she has given me items she no longer wants during her packing. Tonight, she came in, and they acted strangely. I checked the cameras because I had to know. Mark walked her out and leaned into her car for more than 2 minutes. From the angle, it appeared they were kissing. What the heck? I am hurt on multiple levels, but I am unsure if this qualifies as a betrayal. She knew I liked him, even if I only intended for something casual, and she even encouraged me at the beginning to pursue him. But as my friend, how could you allow me to embarrass myself like this? Just tell me about your situation. I care more about our friendship than a trivial potential hookup, but now I feel hurt that she allowed me to continue talking about him while she was the one actually involved with him. Additionally, she manipulated me into believing it was all in my head regarding his changed behavior. It's bad enough to become involved with someone I had an interest in, someone she knew about, but to allow me to keep discussing him as if she weren't the one involved with him. That's messed up, right? Mind you, I ceased talking about him in that manner the day I asked her if he had mentioned anything to her because I sensed something was amiss, but I still bring up minor details regarding him, and she doesn't even acknowledge them now. Furthermore, did she disclose the things I have said to him? Do they mock me? Has she refrained from telling me because she feels guilty that I liked him first? I have so many questions, but I'm afraid to ask. I think I am more hurt that she didn't disclose the truth to me than I am about it being him. He is younger, and I expected that he would eventually enter into a friends with benefits arrangement or start dating someone that I would be aware of, but my friend? Am I overreacting by thinking this is a small betrayal? Update. So, yes, I would categorize this as a betrayal. I told Vicky I suspected something was happening between them, and when I mentioned seeing them kiss on camera, she broke down but insisted they had never been intimate. Sure. After a lot of discussion, because I kept it rather casual, she began speaking as if it were no big deal, sharing all the nice things he says to her and that he keeps her picture in his wallet. I inquired when it all began, and she claimed it started shortly after she joined the team, still married at that point, and her husband used to visit her, but okay. I asked why she encouraged me to pursue him and recounted all the things he had done that indicated he might like me, to which she replied that as long as I was happy, that was all that mattered, keeping in mind that she was seeing him during that period. I posed the most significant question for me. Did she ever reveal anything I have said about him? She pinky promised me that she did not, which is very important to me. So, I think she is being dishonest because Mark messaged me, thanking me for not telling anyone. We are friends too, so it wasn't a big deal. While we were talking, he made a comment that I can't repeat verbatim without disclosing specific details about our workplace. You should start dating so-and-so. Now you'll get your specific job, guy. That remark holds more significance than you might understand. It seemed as though he was implying that since I cannot have him, I should pursue so-and-so. Specific job corresponds to his role. The conversation with Vicky went fine since I kept it light and acted less concerned than I truly am. But as I learn more about this situation, and yes, there is more, the more I feel deeply hurt. I don't typically cry over situations like this, but I couldn't help but let it all out today. This situation is painful, and I feel like my friend doesn't genuinely care about me. Well, enjoy reading if you've made it this far.